All right, we're back with another episode. I'm super excited today. But first, the sponsors, as always. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out all the sponsors listed there. Please leave reviews. Do a terrible job asking for reviews. I always appreciate everybody's reviews on iTunes and everywhere podcasts are heard. I want to thank Gallo Technologies, of course, for the walls behind us, Rhino Metals for all the tables in the building, Blackwater Ammunition, Right On Optics, Full Quartzen Firearms, and everybody else, Galco Leather, everybody listed on the website. Please go check them out. Support the sponsors that support the show. We appreciate all of them. Today's guest is a special guest I'm excited to have on. I've played a little bit of phone tag, DM tag, everything in between to get her on because she's super hot right now, and she's done a phenomenal job getting the word out, getting the vote out, and functioning behind enemy lines, which is interesting. We got the one and only...
Thanks again for having me.
Of course. I'm super excited about this one because I get to, kind of rap with someone in a similar age range as me and has some, what I think is a similar mindset and insight into what's going on out there. So let's back up though, and let's start with why now? Why'd you choose to run now? Why campaign now? What brought you out?
Yeah, so, you probably see everything that goes on in Baltimore City. Mm-hmm. Congressman Cummings passed away back in October of 2019, which left his seat open. He had been there for 30 years. And so there was a lot of people that thought, you know what, there's a lot going on in District 7. It has Baltimore County, Howard County, and lots of parts of West Baltimore where you see so many of the murders and crimes in Baltimore. And so what is, take a look at whether or not we can actually stand a chance in a deep blue district. And so, I threw my hat in the ring and said, okay, I can't just sit around and complain about what's going on. I got to step up and do something about it. And so I did. I, won in the primary, other Republicans. And, actually the congressman that had the seat before Cummings is the one that won his primary, Kwesi Nfume. And so he was there from 1987 to 1996. So it was very interesting to go with someone that was kind of, already in that seat and part of the problem. So, of course, it was a plus 26 Democrat district, and we were not successful, but we are still not giving up.
Yeah, I know you already mentioned that you're not giving up and you're going to pursue, more political options as they kind of pan out. We could spend all day on the campaign and the election, and we're going to go there. But on your campaign, obviously you didn't expect nobody expects a viral moment, right? Like nobody's ever like, wow, this is going to hit. But your video really did hit home because I think it was so real. And I think when you walked those streets and you told your story and you told the story of your area, it genuinely came off as if this is my neighborhood, this is my area, I know what's going on here. There seems to be such a huge disconnect between people and what's really going on at the street level and what's happening. Is it the colleges, Kimberly? Is it what is it that's causing this? Because I look at it as part of our generation and I'm like, this is a fucking mess in plain English. I'm like, how do people not see this? But why is it these people come out of these schools, these kids, everybody, and they're so hell-bent? I have my own theories, but they're so hell-bent on just what I call anarchy and destruction.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't understand why it's like that. When, like you said, we did not expect that campaign ad to go viral. For me, it was just walking down the street in Baltimore like any other day and just pointing out the facts, really. We have over 30,000 vacant homes. We have a lot of blight. We have a lot of trash lining the streets. And we supposedly have a company with Baltimore Department of Public Works where their job, where they get paid millions to clean it up. And so nothing ever seems to get done. You've got people that go into office, they leverage the urban struggle on a federal level, requesting federal funds each year, but they never actually remedy the problems because I believe that they just want to leverage that urban struggle again to receive more funding, right? And then all that money disappears. No one seems to know where it goes. So like I said in the campaign ad, we've had over 50 years of Democrat rule in the Baltimore area, and it just hasn't done anything for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, why doesn't common sense kick in? It's such an easy thing to talk about, but you look at it, and I have a theory, I think it all trickles down, whether it's Zuckerberg or Jack over at Twitter. I think those guys, and I think a lot of the people don't realize they're so rich that I think they want anarchy. I think that's their goal, is they can be anarchists because they can jump on a plane and go live in Costa Rica or go live wherever they want in a hut. And I absolutely think Jack would do that in 30 seconds. I don't think that's beyond him. But I think they grow up just kind of thriving on the chaos. And what happens is you have these youngsters that come out of college in their 20-somethings, and they're like, it's hopeless. They don't want to go work in a cube. They can't get a job on Twitch or gaming or doing whatever that doesn't really accomplish too much. So they just want chaos, and they don't realize these cities are being destroyed, whether it's by BLM or Antifa, and a lot of it is coming to a head right now, and it's really a scary time. It's terrifying, and that's why I think your video resonated so much with people, because you said, this is what's going on. I want everybody to see it. Black and white, plain and simple. This is what's happening. And I think we need more of that. It was so refreshing. It was refreshing even beyond a MAGA level, Kimberly.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and you're right about that. You know, what social media platforms and the media itself thrives on is that chaos, right? That's what gets them the ratings. That's how you're going to get a viral video if you're, in the middle of a protest and a big fight breaks out and someone gets punched and knocked down. And so, yes, I think that social media developers love all the chaos that's going on around us. And then you have the regular people like yourself and me, and we're like, look, we're just trying to raise our kids in this environment and make sure they have a good education and a good life and future moving forward. And so I think we are the majority. I think they call it the silent majority, but we really are the silent majority, because the people that are getting the most airtime and the biggest platform with the biggest microphone are the ones that are causing chaos and getting the ratings for those media outlets. And so now it's kind of like basically reclaiming America. I love the slogan, Make America Great Again, because there was a point in time where we were just doing a whole lot better as a society. You can say what you want about the economy, about the stock market, about everything else, but as people, we were getting along so much more. We weren't so divided. The media wasn't as polarizing, and I wish we would get back to that.
Yeah, I can't agree more, and I think it's a great message, and the hope is that people understand that. I just think it's so scary right now in so many of these cities, because they have been under such democratic rule for such an extended period of time, and I think that a lot of these people that are voting need to realize that we have ourselves to blame, myself included. I mean, I grew up in Boston. I grew up in a Democratic area. I totally understand it and I get it. But the reality is, there has to be some change, some fundamental change on a basic level. I look at your campaign, I look at Anna Paulina's campaign, and we were so close. We're so close to getting the House. It's like we're right there. And that signifies, I believe, I don't know what it means to you, that change is coming. And I think the House is a huge bellwether. And I think that shift, I mean, what are we up to, 11 seats reclaimed or whatever it is? I'm not 100% sure, because the tallies are still coming through. And you were just in Georgia. So what are you seeing on the ground?
Yeah. I had to go to Georgia. We're donating to the Senator Kelly Loeffler and Senator David Perdue. Hopefully people give them as much money as possible. For me, that's really have on our belts per se. We've got to hold on to the Senate. I can't even imagine what this country would look like if there was a Democrat control in the House, the Senate, and the White House. I can't even imagine what that would look like.
Terrifying.
So we have to do everything we can. But just last week, I wanted to point out, Nancy Pelosi got on television and talked about how they did not do anything with the stimulus package because she was waiting to see if Joe Biden was going to be the president. A relief that's sitting on her desk, and she doesn't want to even discuss or negotiate because she doesn't like President Trump. And so we've gotten so far away from having representatives that actually represent the people. Right. And so you're right, there's 11 seats left to reclaim, and I hope we do that in 2022.
Yeah. Does it amaze you? Because it amazes me that she keeps getting reelected. It blows my mind how she gets elected. How she's crazy. Does it blow your mind? I mean, do you ever say, like, how is electing her? I mean,
yeah, no, it's definitely mind blowing. I can't imagine, and again, that's why we need term limits. I mean, she is way past retirement age. I can't even imagine her using a Facebook account, let alone, knowing exactly what the ins and outs are and how they're having so many voices. So we just need some people in there that are just up to, the times today, fresh ideas, innovative ideas. And we see a lot of the bickering that goes back and forth between basically the people that have been sitting on Capitol Hill for over 20 years. It's time to get some new people in there so that we don't have where, I've got a grudge against this person, a grudge against that person, so I'm not willing to work with this person. If we had an entire new Congress, we would get so much more done and completed.
Yeah, I look at her and I say, get it. Listen, there's polarizing people across the board, but it's almost comical, and I know you can laugh at this, when you get people, in Hillary Clinton's done it in the past, where they can honestly say they relate to their constituency. And I think that's what made your video so special, was that relating to the area and that connection to the area. There is no way on God's green earth Nancy Pelosi relates to her electorate. There's absolutely no way. And it leads to the next thing, which is these campaigns and how these elections are run, which are scary, which are terrifying, and should be to everybody. What are you protecting that?
I know, this is terrible. And I think a lot of people are confused on to why President Trump is so, hard, or I guess you could say hard on, but to me, he's doing the right thing. But pushing Governor Brian Kemp to do more in regards to the election process in Georgia. I mean, he wants all eyes to remain on Georgia until January 5th when they have the runoff. And to me, that's important, because we do see a lot of videos that have surfaced that just look very suspicious. And so I think they should continue looking at it. Kelly Loeffler said right last night in the debate, there's 250 investigations open into election fraud or irregularities in Georgia. I'm one of those people where there's smoke, there's fire. And I saw a lot of the videos myself. Why are we passing USBs? Why are we taking one USB off of one computer, passing it along to two people, putting it on another computer? They say they need to open and look at it. You don't do this with votes, right? This is why we always had in-person voting. The person comes in, they vote, they tally the vote, end the story. And so now we have a situation where you have these mail-in ballots, and there's just so much room for error and fraud. And so I think, Trump is doing the right thing by making sure that all eyes remain on Georgia until January 5th.
Well, we both know the whole election thing and the way people are elected is a farce. I mean, give me a fucking break here. We both know that. It's absolutely, totally a farce. And the fact that we can land somebody on the moon and we can fly a frickin' rocket to Mars, but we can't figure out elections. The only reason the election is done that way, the only reason, is because they can fix it. And that is the 100% only reason. If anybody, and I've said this to friends that I have on other sides of the aisle, can look me straight in the face and say, in 2016, when Obama was unbeatable, he ran against a paper-thin candidate, he was unbeatable. You mean to tell me Joe Biden got more votes than him? You've got to be absolutely dreaming if you believe that. You're smoking ayahuasca if that's what you actually believe, that he got that many votes. I think, I look at the Trump movement, and yes, I always put a disclaimer. I have friends on that side of the aisle, family members that listen, that movement, there is absolutely no way in a straight up election Joe Biden won that election. And there's no way, everybody knows this, Kimberly, nobody votes down ballot the way that those ballots came out. This is a known thing. It never happens. It hasn't happened in 100+ years. So we all know the shenanigans that went on, whether people ever want to admit it. The real question is, we hope that now they look at it and they know we can't cash in that chip again. We duped it, because otherwise we're going to become Venezuela. Where does it go from here for elections?
Yeah.
We're going to be a banana republic, So how do we fix it? How does it get fixed?
Yeah, well, one big thing, and this is why the Congress time around, we've got to do something about passing voter ID law. An ID for everything, even a library card these days. But of course, when you go to vote, you don't need anything. It makes absolutely no sense. And so we have to do something to improve the system. I know the Democrats don't want to, but like you said, the way that the votes came in made no And then all of a sudden, you see all of these areas where we picked up House seats, but in that area, there was an overwhelming vote for Joe Biden. Now, I understand President Trump, his rhetoric pissed off a lot of people, but you just don't see voters doing things like that. And then also the voter turnout numbers. They were extremely high. Again, you just don't see that. And so I believe there was a lot of fraud. I believe that there was probably ballots counted multiple times, as some people, whistleblowers have said. And hopefully we get those signed affidavits and, they continue the investigation, because this is our voting process. I mean, we don't want any of this moving forward. We've got people, my ancestors fought for the right to vote. And so for me, this is our civic duty, and this is what I want to continue to make sure it is always fair, and we don't quit, even if Joe Biden is the president and he ends up getting into the White House. That's fine. Got to keep investigating this and making sure it was fair. And to me, there's no statute of limitations on the truth.
Yeah, they're never going to give it to Trump, no matter what. We both know that it's too rigged against him. And I hope he does announce that he's going to run in 4 years, even though I think he'd be a tremendous fundraiser for the party and someone else could step up. I would find it cheeky and interesting if he announced right off the bat that he's going to run in 4 years. Now, the Biden thing, we all know he's going to be a disaster and a puppet, and that whole situation is going to be an absolute disaster. And I think that's going to have a way of kind of canceling itself out, because I have no confidence whatsoever that he's going to be even close to presidential, because he's a disaster now. I mean, it's absolutely terrifying to see what that administration is going to look like. But hey, sometimes they get what they want, and the only hope is that we can hang on to the Senate. I think we're threatening enough in the House to make it really interesting, and I think that threat of the House turning is going to make them walk on eggshells if we hang on to the Senate. If we hang on to the Senate, which it looks like we're going to at least get one of the two, Georgia, between the Senate races.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that we'll probably get both seats.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Ossoff is so far left. I mean, I just still can't see him beating David Perdue. Ossoff is talking about how he wants more lockdowns, more restrictions. There's a lot of Georgia counties that are already hurting because of the restrictions and the lockdowns, and I don't think that we're going to vote for that. And then, as we saw in the debates last night, Warnock and Loeffler, Warnock, he didn't really jab back at all. He didn't have any good response. Some of the I was kind of shocked, especially being a mother. Kelly Loeffler pointed out Warnock was arrested for child abuse. And then he didn't even explain what the arrest was about or what happened or how it ended. He just said the cops thanked him at the end of the day. And I thought that was interesting, that nobody even pushed back on that. So I don't think the Democrats are going to pick up either seat. But again, because of what we saw in the presidential election, I really hope we don't take our eyes off of it to make sure that there isn't any fraud that will happen on January 5th.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. I think at the very least, I hope that Georgia comes to its senses, which I think that it will, and I think the electorate will speak. But, it's all very scary times. And I think when we look at it, and I really value your take on this, the media component and social media is such an important component. And you've proven that in your election. I know Anna Paulina had a great run against Charlie Crist as well. I love you, Anna. But there's so many great people that have had great runs. I think of Catalina Lauf. I think of so many of the candidates even that I've had on the show that have really utilized media so well. Is it scary to you how gamed the system is against us and against anyone who wants to run with a competing agenda with the media, with any media outlet?
Yeah, and that is a problem. I mean, I do like that, you've got Newsmax and OAN trying to step up on the national scene. But at the same time, it makes it very tough and difficult. I mean, I talk to young people all the time. They say, I don't have a lot of money to run for office. What do you think I should do about it? And I said, look, I didn't put a dime into my congressional run, right? We just used that campaign ad, and we were able to raise over $8.3 million. But of course, that was President Trump, his kids, everybody sharing it. But at the same time, think about someone that has a great ad say they're conservative, but unfortunately you got Facebook, Twitter, all of these different social platforms that could suppress those ads from getting out. And then you look at, that situation where that candidate won't be able to make even, enough money to have a good race. And so it's frustrating, as far as the big media, we know the DNC controls a lot of what happens on CNN, MSNBC, and those stations. But the social media platforms, that's where it's getting very scary to me.
Yeah.
Soon, if we continue down this road, I don't know how we're going to have any outlet moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're making a big play for Parler, and part of my concern, and I've been vocal about it on Parler, is, our days are numbered with the whole Fox News thing because the kids are as left as could be. So the days are numbered there. What that's going to look like is, Newsmax is recycling a lot of old faces, but it feels to me, Kimberly, like, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. We need a lot of fresh blood all around. There just needs to, I like what Charlie Kirk's doing, a turning point. There just needs to be fresh blood in those seats. I understand people need to work. I get that. But you go even to Newsmax and OAN, and I hate to be critical of them because it's all we have, but the conversation needs to start. I would love to see somebody like you. So there needs to be fresh blood in some of these outlets. And there has to be some young blood having the conversation, because it's a lot of what we preached against, which is, I've been in Washington for 20 years. I've been in Washington for 30 years. We need new blood in some of these outlets.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, you bring up a good point. Look at all those people on Twitter that do have big voices. The person who did my campaign ad was Benny Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? The part of Turning Point. Charlie Kirk all the time. I think he just now received a Saturday show on Newsmax. But these are the guys that have the biggest platforms on social media. You would think that they would be able to take that and translate it over to some of these networks, since they do have such a following. But I guess, like you said, the networks, they still have people that have been there for a very long time. They're not willing to retire. And I hate to say it, but there are a lot of networks that have their own agenda, and maybe it's easier to manipulate people that have been there for 20 years to get out their specific narrative or agenda than it is to manipulate, say, a Benny or a Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I look at even like Charlie, for example, with, having his podcast and everything else. I mean, Charlie needs a show. I mean, it's at that point where just it's honestly comical at this point. I think somebody like even yourself or Anna, some of these people, they need to be given a platform, and we're just at that point where, yes, the social media and the following should dictate. I think what Tucker's done is amazing, and I think what he's doing is amazing by banging that drum. He's one of those people that's out there and that's doing it and that's putting the facts out there. But I look at you brought up OAN and Newsmax, and one of the things I'm critical about is take a chance. You're trying to take over mediums that people are trying to gain in. I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't recognize maybe two. I don't recognize three names on Newsmax. I don't. I mean, I'm young and stupid, but there's so many other fresh faces that could be put out there. And God only knows what they're paying for those salaries and whatever else. Like, bring in some blood that can actually inject some young, vibrant energy into the party and start these conversations, because we see the Democrats doing it with AOC and with other people, giving them platforms and giving them the ability to sound off and say what they want, good or bad, and we both can have our debate on that. But I think this is a tremendous opportunity, and I would love to see two things happen. I would love to see Trump announce that he's going to launch his own news media outlet, and I would love to see him announce that he's going to run in 4 years, because I think that would make things very interesting.
Yeah, back in 2016, that's when I actually first met President Trump, before he was actually elected in 2015. And there was a lot of talks about him starting Trump Media.
Yep.
And so I hope he does do that. Right now, of course, I don't know, you might have heard it too. I hear that if Joe Biden is inaugurated, Trump on Inauguration Day will announce that he's going to run in 2024.
I think he should.
So if that is the case,
Yeah, I think he should. I think it's a even if he doesn't, if it's a passive, if he just puts it out there, I think it's the right move because I think it puts everybody on their heels and they have to operate as such. And I think it's one of those things that gives them a moment of pause. And with the threat in the House and possibly hanging on to the Senate, it's just enough to keep the balance in our not in our but just keeps everything on an even keel for the time being. Corona has posed such an interesting thing for us. I mean, there's the health component, there's the lockdowns, there's everything, and I think we're all in agreement that everybody wants to see us pull through this and be healthy and everything in between. But do you get the feeling, and I know you've talked about it and you've talked about it very openly, these lockdowns, what are they trying to do and what are they trying to accomplish, Kimberly? What is the goal of these lockdowns? Do you really believe it has the public health in mind? Because I look at these small businesses and I look at these people's hopes and dreams, being crushed. And I'm sure you've seen it all over Baltimore. It's scary. And there's a lot of people that are just coming out and they're saying, I'm just trying to put food on the table for my family. Like I'm just trying to get by. There's no stimulus. There's no help. How do you make sense of that? And what conversations did you have with the constituency about that?
Yeah, so it is tough for everyone. We've got a lot of people in eviction. One of the toughest parts, it seems, about the lockdown restrictions is the fact that kids can't go to school. I've talked to many parents who are saying that their children are just struggling tremendously with the online learning. They are telling me they need in-person learning. They need that social interactive. They have an appetite for that, obviously, like any kid. But then they also just need to be, in some kind of normalcy again. These kids now have no structure. They've got some kids that roll out of bed, try to log on. If they're successful at it, great. If their parents at work, some of the parents say, my kid just won't log on, right? You got to be on top of them. And then we have some kids that are living in situations where they call it a dead zone, where they don't even have any Wi-Fi in that area. And it's interesting because this is in West Baltimore, and these kids were already there where many of those schools are failing schools. Kids are graduating, not able to read, write, or do basic math. And so now we're setting them back even further. So to me, this is going to set us up dangerously in the future, right? We're going to have a generation of kids where they missed out a lot of person learning. I can't even imagine what some of these kids are going through that are supposed to be. Parents are not teachers, right? I don't expect any parent to teach their child how to read. And so now they're faced with this decision. We've heard that some schools say they're going to pass the kids anyway and just push them through definitely. They're not going to be able to reopen. Baltimore City, like many cities, is, they made a lot of money on tourist attraction area. When you have a lot of people in the food and beverage industry, hospitality industry, all of those people are out of work, right? So there's a large amount of people here that are trying to apply for unemployment, successful in even receiving their unemployment. And that's on the state. We have Governor Hogan, who bashes Trump all the time on TV, but can't seem to get unemployment straightened out for his constituents. So we're hurting a lot here. And I don't know what their end game is. Do they want people to just depend on big government? Because if that's what they want, I think we will see a lot of people standing up and standing their ground. And I can't imagine that this won't lead to some kind of chaos.
What I find interesting is teachers for a long time have been a big part of the Democratic voting bloc. And I had a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine who's a teacher, Kimberly. And this might be something interesting to discuss. He said he's legitimately in fear that he may lose his career because of the way this is going, and that they might say, you know what, some of these high schools and everything, the private ones, they can't survive and people don't want to pay. And he's like, I'm going to be out of a job because of this. So that voting block is being threatened. And I just think back, and I know it's cliche and people might, but Democrats are so stupid that they'll push this to the limit. It's kind of like the cure is worse than the disease. They're going to push it to a limit where I know schools that are dangerously close to closing because they can't afford to stay open. Catholic schools, private schools, and all these teachers are going to be out of jobs. And who are they going to hate because of that? The Democrats that put them there. That's going to be an interesting dynamic.
No, you're absolutely. Yeah. Well, and my daughter, she goes to private school. She started preschool this year. And I received the phone calls asking for donations,
Hmm.
obviously, because they're not able to even make any of the money. They weren't able to do any of the festivals this year. They usually do like a huge bull roast where they take in a lot of money, all the fundraisers. And again, like you said, some of the parents aren't able to pay tuition. So yeah, this is very dangerous, and I think it's going to get very scary.
Hmm.
And this is again why we got to make sure we keep control of the Senate to continue to balance this out in some way or fashion.
Yeah, that is gonna be an interesting one to see play out because when he said that to me and he had been a lifelong Democrat, he was like, I legitimately feel like my job's in jeopardy. Like we could announce that the school can't open, we can't function, and money's tight right now and people can't make the donations. And he's like, I just, I'm at that point where, what do I do? This is my career, this is my vocation, this is my calling. What am I gonna go and do? And
Yeah.
I think they're playing with fire with that one, and I think they're going to alienate a huge voting block for them. And it's historically they're known to do that. I mean, we're already seeing it down in Miami and in South Florida, that huge Latino vote that just goes the other way. And they all know what it's like to live in communism. I just had Dennis Wolf, the bodybuilder, on. He grew up in Russia. He's like, people don't realize what communism is. Jorge Masvidal, Georgie, came out and was on the tour in South Florida. He's like, I grew up in communism. I know what communism is. My family came from socialism. It's just there's a disconnect at the party level, and I think they're pushing it to a level that they might not be able to come back from.
Yeah, yeah. This is all about those that are in power and making the most money, retaining that power and keeping the control. I used to say all the time, you hear Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, they talk about sharing the wealth. They never talk about sharing the power. You notice that? They
Hmm.
always talk about taxing the rich guy. They never talk about term limits or getting some people in there with some fresh ideas. And so they're very power hungry. And so now we have people in office like Nancy Pelosi that will do anything to keep power. And that's scary. And I still can't believe, like you said, who's voting for Nancy Pelosi, who's voting for many of those Democrats.
Hmm.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. Maxine Waters, all of those people that have been sitting there for a very long time, that have not been doing anything for their constituents, but collecting money and being enriched on a selfish level.
Well, if you grew up like I grew up in Boston, a lot of time holders and those people that get behind candidates, they say, oh, we have to vote for this person because they're for this or they're for that. There's never actually a study of the facts and never actually a study of anything. I grew up in East Boston, Mass. It's like South Boston. It's like anywhere else. And people would go out and hold signs, and I'm like, you guys are idiots. They're not for this. That's what they want you to believe, to hold the sign and to actually go and cast the vote. But they're not going to help you when push comes to shove. And Baltimore is very similar. It's a blue collar city, a hardworking city. I used to drive down all the time and go see Red Sox games down in Camden Yards. I get it, and that there's similar areas. And finally, as I grew up, my big thing was, people are losing their basic fundamental rights, and they're fighting for the basics, really stuff that we should not be fighting for, which sounds so crazy. I'm a big believer that all power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I'm a big fan of term limits. I'm a big fan of one thing that Parler does do, which is verification of all accounts. I think there's too much shenanigans and there's too many people running around doing whatever they want, saying whatever they want. And I think Charlie has done a phenomenal job going to the college campuses, which has shined a light on what these kids are being educated at a college level and what they think is and what they think equal rights are and what they think is okay and what they think is not okay, which is even scarier. I mean, some of these children are brainwashed into believing that a government should tell them when to go to the bathroom. It's scary, Kimberly. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. I had a Zoom call. This is why I was on the campaign
Yeah.
with some students at Loyola University, Baltimore area. And it was interesting because on this call, there was the Loyola GOP Greyhounds, right? Their Republican group. And then it was a Democrat group, like a Black association, Black Students Association, something like that. And we were talking about what's going on at, the local level, right? City council. And so there was one young lady in the Black Student Association who said, I am just so sick of the Republicans. They do what they want at City Hall. It's all about the white Republicans, sticking it to the black man. And I was just shocked because, if you know anything about City Council in Baltimore City, it's all Democrat. There are no Republicans. There haven't been for years, and then I think it's basically an all black city council. I believe there's two very white liberals, very, very liberal guys that sit in city council. But, it was interesting for her to say that. She's a college student. She grew up in Baltimore her entire life, and she had no idea that there weren't any Republicans in office on the local level. And I'm thinking, what are you learning at school? This is unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
And so I said, you've got to go and look at the facts. And this is why I have a hard time with the education system, because they just aren't giving kids the facts. They're giving kids an opinion that comes from a very left-leaning agenda. And it's hard to see. And she said, okay, well, I'll look it up. And I thought, oh my gosh, please do. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe she thought any Republicans were in office in Baltimore.
It's stunning. And it goes on in I've seen it in Massachusetts. And, one of the scarier things is the attorney general there will just say, this gun's okay, that gun's not okay. We're going to make a list. This isn't right. That isn't right. Listen, I so bad want to sit down with them sometimes and be like, listen, all guns go bang. Just say what you are. You want to ban everything just to not have it in the hands of anybody. And you want to take away people's rights. This is something that's fundamentally wrong. There's not enough education going on, even to the elected officials that don't understand what they're talking about. They don't know how to address it. And they don't know how to put a coalition together to analyze it or get any opinion. It's absolutely tremendously scary to see play out. Like you said, you had a conversation with someone who's supposed to be an educated person or receiving an education, and they don't even know the facts. And that's one of the things that's been great about seeing Charlie and Candace and some of these people go out there and people, this is what you're being taught, but this is the reality. It's scary.
Right. Yeah, no. And I myself was very ignorant when it came to, guns and the Second Amendment. You grew up in an area where it is literally, over 300 homicides each year. I don't know if you know this, but in Baltimore, there are no gun ranges. When you have a gun, it's usually you have it because, you stole it from somebody else.
Right.
We have a problem with getting the consent carry permits. And this is how it's always been. And so for me, it's like I had to learn for myself. The Second Amendment, it protects the right to bear arms, no matter which type of gun it is. And so there are a lot of people that will say, oh, this gun is worse than this gun because you can shoot so many bullets at this time. And you're right. It is depending on the person that is shooting the gun. And we never have that conversation we need to have.
I mean, at that level, if we're going to operate with that kind of thinking, peanut allergies are really bad. We should ban peanuts. I mean, we should start to ban certain peanuts at a certain level. It's just, are the that's the level of the erosion of rights that can happen. And I joked with somebody the other day, we're going to be growing up in a demolition man society where it's going to be like, everybody's going to be walking around saying, what's your boggle? And, happy, happy, joy, joy, because we're going to be brainwashed to operate that way. Go back and watch the movie Demolition Man. That's literally what we're going to be moving towards. And it's scary because so many people are willing to say, yep, that's the way we should be. Yeah, that's how it should go. And we should line up and we should get chips implanted in our heads and we should do all that. We can't enforce some of these things, whether it's COVID or certain things that are starting to come out. I know in California, one of the sheriffs came out and said, I can't enforce this. And you look at Chicago with the strictest gun laws, it's a mess there. It's a total mess. It's a war zone. And they try to chalk it up as, the guns are coming in from Indiana. The guns are going. Listen, I've been to Indiana. It's one of the most law-abiding, great states there are. It's a phenomenal piece of the country. Trust me, they're not. They make it sound like they're driving in carloads of guns, like it's in Mexico, into Chicago. It's comical. If people want to commit a crime, people will commit a crime. That is a fact. Human beings commit crimes. We both know that. Okay. If people want to go and take a look and do a case study, whether it's London or Australia, and look at the violent crimes that are committed without firearms it's staggering. And when you look at the real firearms numbers and what's committing the crimes, it's not AR-15s, it's not suppressors, it's not those things. People don't realize the paperwork that's involved with that and the process that you have to go through. And by and large, it's not your concealed carry permit owners. That's the equivalent of me taking my registered car, registered to me with my license plate on it, and running 5 people over and not expecting to get caught. It's just not reality.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And what you see in Chicago is basically what we have here in Baltimore. And to me, it's just a way to deflect from what the real issues are. They want to go against, like you said, the concealed carry permits and those that have them, because those are the people that follow the law, right? Those that are following the law are the people that they always seem to go after. And, you can have all these COVID restrictions, but who actually adheres to them? Those that follow the law on a normal basis. And so our governor, I call him a rhino because he is. Governor Hogan is a rhino. And he actually put out an alert right before Thanksgiving saying, if you see your neighbor having more than 10 people over your house, call the police and the police will come. We went from we're in this together to call the police on your neighbor if they have a Thanksgiving get together with their family members. It's absolutely insane. But that's what they do. They pick on those that usually follow the law. Meanwhile, we have gang members, especially those in MSN 13. Here in Baltimore, we have the Black Guerrilla family. We have all these people causing havoc on a daily basis. But those are the ones being slapped on the wrist, and they're out on the streets being 11, 12-time repeat offender. Because we are just so soft on the actual criminals. And so now we've got people want to defund the police. They're celebrating, criminals, basically. Some of the big cases that we've seen across the country, where we've seen lots of protest, we were protesting for criminals in many of those cases. If you don't play stupid games if you don't want stupid prizes, right? We are celebrating people that are engaging in criminal activity for what? I don't know. It's for some reason we've gone completely backwards. So many of what our civil rights leaders fought for, we have completely turned that around. I think all the time of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. always saying, I can't wait to see the day that we're judged by the content of our character and not the color of our skin. Meanwhile, that is what we're doing all of the time now. We're judging people by the skin color 100% of the time.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're seeing, whether it's similar to New York, the retirement rate in law enforcement in Baltimore probably through the roof. And not only that, the people dropping out of the career path. And that's troubling too, because nobody wants that job. Right now, nobody wants that career path. It's scary.
Nope. It's going in a downward spiral. I mean, for some reason, we are attacking heroes. Those that put their lives on the line for people they've never even met before. We are attacking heroes. But then we're celebrating, first respond those that are, in the hospitals, those that are the firefighters. The police should be celebrated just as much, if not more. But for some reason, that's a great way to attack people, to play on people's emotions. Whenever there's an election cycle, how many times have we heard about Black Lives Matter right before a big election? Because they know that they can get people fired up emotionally, and another tactic that the DNC uses in their playbook every single time.
Yeah, it's so clear, and I only hope that the message becomes clearer and the we're able to keep continuing to get the word out. Now, I ask every elected official this, and it's a loaded question, but I gotta get your take. Is where do we begin? How do we fix it? If you were president tomorrow, or how do we begin to put the pieces back together? And where does it start? Is it social media? Is it at the grassroots? Like, how do we begin to get this back on track? What do you suggest to anyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, we got to get back to, first of all, personal responsibility and accountability. We see so many people today that just don't even want to take personal responsibility for their actions, right? And so once we can get that back, I talk about all the time, especially in the Black community, we have to celebrate family structure. it is important. It is known to be important to have both the father and the mother involved in the children's lives. Those children are usually the children that go off to be successful. Education. Again, we do spend a lot of money on education, but we don't seem to get a lot of the good results that we're hoping for. So we have to have people in office that will do the due diligence and follow up on some of this money that is going to the education system, and look at the fact that we have kids that are graduating that are just not educated. And so, people have to do a better job at their job. And there has to be accountability and transparency. To me, when you look at Congress for what they do, it seems, I know across the country, you'll see a lot of elected officials, they'll say, wear your mask, social distance, you can't have parties, and then they're hypocrites that go out and do the same thing themselves. So we got to be able to have more accountability on those elected officials as well. We can't just allow them to dictate everything that's going on here, and they forget that they work for us. They work for us and should be doing what we ask them to do. And so it's interesting to me that we've just gone so far away from that, and that people are almost begging for big government. But we got to get back to personal responsibility, smaller government, and just telling people, look, the government in reality owes you absolutely nothing. But what we can say here in this country is this is the land of opportunity. It is the land of freedom. And then once we get back to those basic core values, I think we can see a change.
I agree with everything you said, and it's so well put. It's perfect. Now, you mentioned you're not done. Where does it go from here for you?
Yeah. So this week we're actually launching our new PAC. It's called Red Renaissance. I talked about it this morning on Fox, actually. We're going to basically be donating to candidates across the country that just don't really get that support from the RNC and the GOP. Like my race, I was told don't even run in my race. Jesus Christ couldn't win my seat. It's a plus 30 Democrat district, any funding. And I thought, okay, well, you need funding to win these seats. And even if I don't win, at what point in time are we going to start chipping away at these areas? So our first and foremost thing is to find great candidates across the country that want to run in deep blue districts and want to start chipping away. I don't know where this country's going to be in 10 years, but I definitely don't want to look at Capitol Hill and see a bunch of AOCs running around. Right? We have to start cultivating Republican candidates and just people that really are, love our country, love the Constitution, and will uphold it. Some of the things that I saw too, always looking for that perfect candidate. That for me, there's no such thing as decisions for everybody. So, the Republican establishment, we're going to tell them, look, there's going to be some new faces coming in. We're going to make sure that they at least uphold the Constitution and they, fight for our rights. But, some of them just aren't going to be your perfect cookie cutter GOP candidate that you've always hoped for. It's just not a possibility. I myself am a college dropout. That for some reason sent so many Republicans through the roof. It was unbelievable to me, but I've made a career for myself. I've always worked hard. I just didn't finish college. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to go across the country, find some great candidates to run and help fund them so they can actually start beating these Democrats, or at least start chipping away so that we can start seeing these seats flip in the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, and you probably may or may not know, even here in Vegas, one of the big falling outs I had with the local party is we had a tremendous, awesome candidate in Lisa Song Sutton, and they didn't support her at all, didn't get behind her at all. Lisa was a phenomenal candidate, and they decided to have the old white guy from the city council run up against a black incumbent that had been in office for change it up. And that's what I'm trying to say, like, switch it up. Stop doing what the establishment dictates you should do and start to change it up. I thought Lisa was a phenomenal candidate and a firebrand.
I know Lisa actually very well. Great girl. I knew because I also did pageantry as Lisa did.
Yeah.
For some reason, even when you do pageantry, for some reason the Republican establishment doesn't like that either.
Well, it's at the state level. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it's shame on the state level for not supporting and getting behind her as a candidate. And that was one of my big things. I was just kind of like blown away. I'm like, this is a perfect candidate, educated, understands having a presence and understands how to carry herself. I'm all for. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, a lot of this media stuff, it's pageantry. That's what it is. She has the perfect resume to develop that. And, I mean, I call it what it is, I really hope and pray, and for me personally, I really hope that there's a huge shakeup, not just at the media level for the party, but also at the state level. Some changes need to be made, and there needs to be a shift. And to anybody listening, that shift needs to be positive and needs to be embraced. And the hope is that a lot of those people that are in those seats right now of decision making, even at the GOP, they need to say, yes, we need this new blood, and we need to harness it and bring it in. And at the very least, be the hero that grabs somebody by the arm and holds their arm up and says, we're going to bring this person in, or we're going to support this person, even if it is shallow at times, right? Just to show that we're willing to make the change and make the adjustment and embrace the new. No better time than now. And if the electorate's shown us anything with these, the newly elected GOP caucus coming into the House, is people want that change. They want that freshness, especially with that movement of women that were elected, which is awesome. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I love like Marjorie. Yeah. I think she's great. And I really love Lisa Song-Sutton too, because she's in real estate. I mean, let's get some people in there that really know about the housing market, because people are still feeling it from that crash back in 2008. So yeah, I agree with you. Lisa was a perfect candidate. But that's what we're going to be doing with Red Renaissance. We're going to go around the country, and we're going to help candidates like Lisa that for some reason are just rejected by the Republican Party because they want this old establishment look. We can't afford to have that. I hope we get more candidates that are just more like fighters.
Yeah.
I would love to see somebody like Tomi Lahren now that she's in Nashville, and see her, get on Capitol Hill and maybe knock AOC around a little bit. We got to get some more fighters up there too.
Yeah,
we do. We've got to put up a fight.
The Nevada one boggles me because they haven't won one election, so I don't even know how that state GOP stays in function. I don't even know how they get airtime. They haven't won one thing. No offense to Adam or any of those guys, but they haven't won one fucking thing in plain English. Tell me an election you've won. I'll wait. You know what I mean? It's that bad. It's like, wake the fuck up, people. But here's the thing. You're phenomenal. And I'm looking forward to what you do, what the next steps look like. Let everybody know where they can find your new PAC and what's going on, and how people can reach out. And I'll put the links down below, and let everybody know where you'll be next.
.com. You'll see our landing page there now. Fill it out as we go. You'll be able to contact us, ask us any questions directly. Of course, we'll have merchandise on there. So sure. We'll be talking. We'll hopefully getting the word out. I'll be making my rounds, going on different media outlets talking about it, just so people know that it's there and that we're in existence. And perhaps there'll be some people that see it and say, you know what? I've always thought about running for office, but I never thought I could raise the money. Those are the kind of candidates that we want. We want a candidate that really has a heart and desire to do it, but just think that the funding is a little overwhelming for them. Because we want to work with them. And then we can also work with them on another level by helping them get people like Benny Johnson, who did my campaign ad. Connect them with the people that can maybe get them a viral ad to make them money. That's all it takes, really, is the connections. And that's what we don't do as well as the DNC does. The DNC is very organized, and they help each other. The RNC needs to be able to help one another, get behind the candidates, and help promote them in any way that they can. And so that's what we're going to do. Hopefully, because of Red Renaissance, the RNC step up and do more on their level as well.
And I'll put the link down below. I can't thank you enough for taking the time today. I know how busy you are, and it took us a minute to connect. But I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to following the journey and seeing where it goes from here. You're always welcome here, and next time you're in Vegas, love to have you in studio, of course. And I appreciate everything that you're doing. I think your message, everything about what you're doing is phenomenal, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. I appreciate you. Thank you, Kimberly. Oh, so.
Thanks.